It's a very good morning. Welcome to Asake Online. My name is Zenzele Ndebele, and this is the Breakfast Club. Once in a while, or almost every week, we bring you interviews with former members of the ZPRA. These could be people who were soldiers, people who were in the intelligence, people who were leaders, to try and understand the history, because over the years, a lot has been said. Some of the stories are not true, some are true, but also you realize that it is very difficult to get books and that talk a lot about the history of ZPRA. Therefore, a lot of young people don't really know much about ZPRA. But the role or the duty of telling these stories is a very difficult one, because this is almost like 40 years or so, 42 years or 43 years after independence, and the narratives change. Everyone becomes a hero, and many stories get to be told in different ways. So it is always important that we talk to different people to find out what happened, to try and understand from all angles, and the balancing act is not easy. One of the organizations that were very active in ZPRA was the National Security Order, known as NSO. There have been so many stories and so many controversies around the NSO. Some people in ZPRA accuse them as the people who, disturbed the struggle. Others say they spied on them. And there are so many things that have been said about the NSO. And in the last weeks, we have been trying to talk to NSO members to understand their role, how they saw themselves, and their response to some of these allegations. And today in the program, we'll be talking to Zephaniah Moyo. Some know him as Jekonia. That was his name that he used in the liberation struggle. He was part of the NSO. And the interesting history about Dubabu Moyo is that before he joined the liberation struggle, he had served as a police officer in the Rhodesian police. So he joined not just as a recruit, but someone who was already been trained. So how was he viewed by some of the ZPRA guys? Was he seen as a spy? What was his relationship with ZPRA leadership and the ZPRA commanders? He's going to tell his story.
I did all the vettings, and a number of guys who were underground. I had to move them outside the perimeter fence, and all the logistics, medics, supplies, to hide them with the supplies, food supplies in the mountains, then the signals. Also, I moved them outside because I said this is a dangerous situation where the signals are inside the perimeter fence and so forth, and the food as well inside. I think I made about 4, 5, 6 trips, and I think whilst I had started, doing the, now I think it's around 79, doing all these vettings. The Smith regime had identified our camp. I think it was the Selu Scouts. So after their return, they took too long to attack. Otherwise, they were going to almost collect almost or everyone who was there. Then the time they decided to attack the camp, because it was attacked the same day they attacked the Mkush. They had helicopters, there's troop carriers, the Dakotas, and they had enough fuel, which at least they'd put in the old Mkushi and Boroma land airstrip, which was used by the Zambians during those old days, I think during the Federation. But still, the aircraft could easily land. So after some months or a month or two, I think there was only about 40 people left in the camp. the enemy came and attacked. Those who were inside the perimeter fence, they went underground, and some of the people ran away. We lost about 6 or 7, guys. 2 security guys, and then 2 of those people who were called suspects. And they had a GP, a meeting point. So after the bombardment, they all moved to that separate gathering point. From there, they moved further down towards Mkushi, and then they set up a small camp. And then I was actually bombed in Freedom Camp. I was slightly injured. But after the bombardment of Mkushi and Boroma, I was expected also to go and do, the assessment on the ground. So first we did Freedom Camp. After Freedom Camp, I proceeded, with others to Mkushi and then Boroma, where I met these guys, having settled in a camp between Boroma and Mkushi. We named it Lima. Then I went back to Dabang and said, okay, Dabang, I told you that these guys, most of them were not enemy agents, because if they're enemy agents, you should have all absconded. But look here, I discovered that already they had a base. On the day when I went to Lima, where I first found these guys, Churchill was there. He was one of those people detained. I think he had a misunderstanding, or he was picked by Sam Madondo. Sam Madondo was a very short-tempered somebody. But his full name was Zephaniah Moyo. When we entered the camp, I went ahead and greeted. I was looking for the commander. Before we could discuss anything, there was this, shooting. When we rushed and went back, we found that, it was Sam Madondo trying to kill Churchill and this other guy. Fortunately, he missed Churchill, but he hit the other guy. He was hit on his arm. Then they ran away. We later discovered that they went as far as Lusaka West, where they were assisted by a member of the party, and then they proceeded to Angola up to independence. My responsibility again was to supervise the training of police officers in Lilai and to send them to various places for further training, Soviet Union and Yugoslavia. And again, was responsible for the people trained in customs and the immigrations. Those they did their training in Yugoslavia. And then from time to time, I would work with the KGB and then the Zambian force, security intelligence department, and the ANC. There was Ulysses, whom I was coordinating, who was in charge of intelligence services. Well, reporting directly to Dabengo. From time to time, we used to have some meetings up until the end of the year, because those who were actually attacked in Mkushi, most of them were taken to Kafue, Makeni, and then from there the Mkushi girls went to Mazo, which was Solwezi. During during the cause, while this was happening, the next group which at least actually left was a group led by MacLeod Chawe. They also did the same program. And later there was a group led by retired Brigadier Maishomi. They specialized in border guarding. Also, they fell under the public security and rehabilitation right up to independence.
So, having worked for the Rhodesian police and now in ZPRA, didn't you feel the pressure? Were you not suspected of being a spy?
As I earlier on said, on my arrival at Nampundo, actually, they wanted to detain me or to interrogate me, beat me up to pieces. But, well, God's will, I would say I was saved by Tabengo. We decided, I don't know, understand why he decided that I should proceed to the Soviet Union. Whether I thought I was going to run away, rather I should go for further training, or whether he felt I was qualified to do further training, so that, you see, on my way back, immediately I was assigned as a deputy director responsible for public relations, which a lot of people in ZPRA, they were not happy about. It's not a secret. Well, there are people who claim that, you see, the NSO was led by civilians. But as far as I'm concerned, not even one person who was a civilian.
Yeah, I've heard that many times, that NSO
Yeah.
was led by civilians, and also that NSO mainly or mostly killed the military intelligence.
Well, it's one person. It's actually, I would say there are two people. The people responsible for military intelligence, because they thought we were taking away their department, whereas it was revolution actually goes in phases. Guerrillas started as guerrillas, moving as lone guerrillas, 2, 3, 4, 5, section, whatever, now becoming more than 15 and so forth, up to the time when the leadership decided to have battalions, regular, forces. Again, it created some problems, because there were some people who were earmarking to be the commander from Masuku. I mean, from Akim. But this time we were looking at a bigger force. Then a person who would have done proper training in a military academy was appointed, who is Nikita Mangen. All the report and others, they were guerrillas. They couldn't command an army. There's two different things. Commanding, guerrillas, commanding an army, these are two different situations, because when you command an army, you command up to brigade level. But in guerrilla warfare, you can't command up to even a company level. So, or a battalion level. That's why those people were trained, the first guerrillas, they were not trained to command a company or a battalion. They would understand the army, how the army stands, but they couldn't command. Because, a battalion, it will be composed, you'll be mixing the ground force or infantry. Infantry means they'll be having small arms, and they'll be supported most probably by the mechanized and artillery. At the same time, if the army grows, you have the Air Force, which also flies to assist special air services, to assist the people on the ground. But a guerrilla cannot do that. The person who is trained as a guerrilla. That is one thing for sure.
So to me, it sounds like at one point in ZPRA, there was a bit of conflict between the guerrillas and the formal army, the educated young people, and those who were less educated.
Well, it's an obvious, as I say, revolution it had a problem because the recruitment was not on the base of applications and saying we need people with O level and people who are not educated. We're just recruiting almost everyone, those who were brave, those who were prepared to fight. But as time went, as I say that people will say, okay, how can I be commanded by somebody who is not, who hasn't attained O level, who hasn't been actually even trained as a commander? That's why when the regular force was established with Lungushi, which was commanded by retired Brigadier Madliwa, part of some of the battalions. And we had officers trained in Koyima for further training. Some of them were trained as guerrillas, but with special, let's say, O level. They were picked up to go and do officers' course in Koyima. Some went into the Soviet Union. So that difference is there. Actually, in any society, the difference is there. Even people who are in education, even the bases where people were being trained, some of the people thought their base was better, training camp was better than the other. Like you take teachers, from example here in Zimbabwe, a person trained in UCE and then in Gwanda's in Tech and they go hillside. They always have this different in Mkoba, Belvedere, that we are superior than you. So that was exactly what was happening. And especially when the NSO, when the enemy realized that, there were people who were highly specialized in intelligence. They even got the wind or the information. They went around in the operational areas throwing some pamphlets saying, be careful. There is a crack force of this so-called NSO team who are coming here to kill all the commanders, to take over the command. Because they didn't know that it was a way of how we're developing our army to be a formidable one.
Now looking back, as we conclude, looking back at ZPRA, the elections and what happened later, and the fact that ZAPU did not win, where do you think things went wrong?
I was lucky not to remain behind. And when Dabengwa and other senior intelligence officers came into the country, I remained behind as in charge of, assigned to be in charge of intelligence. I came in charge of a few battalions who were there. So we had some few meetings with some Russians. They said, you guys, as long as your leadership have accepted both ZPRA and Zanla, the issue of Lakenstein House, there is a serious confusion. You being ZAP, you are going to lose. And they mentioned all the reasons. One, we're communist trained. Two, we had an alliance with Mkondo Sizwe, which were fighting against apartheid, where they were the Communist Party. And at the same time, if you go back, look at what happened, in the Wanki campaign, the whole world was enlightened because of JD and Chris Hani crossing into the country, the fight which took place at Mabongwane, 0.22. That's when the really enemy realized that, you see, now these guys, they want their land. And the second one was the 1968. The guy which was the team, I mean, section, I mean, the company led by Moffat Hadebe and Ralph Mzam. Also, it was South Africans, MK, and we had a lot of enemies, the whole world, mind you. And at the same time, my assessment is this, that ours was more complicated because it didn't start with us as here, the people of this region, or as ZAPO. It started with in South Africa, the Dingani, the Qwetshwayo, and coming up, the Mzilikazi, resisting the white settlers, the Lobengula, resisting the white settlers. They were brave, fighting, the Boers using those short assegais. They were warriors. So the British didn't actually want us. That's why even if you come into Mateben, there are all these dotted, forts where they were fierce battles. So there was no way we could win, and that's why the Russians said, "You guys, your revolution is going to come to an end, because the British, you must not actually give them an opportunity to sit on the table with them." And moreover, you see, there's not even, as far as I'm concerned, I haven't researched much. There's not even one liberation movement in this world which was armed like ZPRA, with a formidable, army like ZPRA. Even if you look at the structures which we were building in Zambia, we're ready to take the country and rule. You look at the ladies having been sent even on the civilian side to do secretariat, stenography, and other things. And there's some few people who had gone overseas, to study economics. So we're ready to take over the country. The police were the proper police, not war veterans or fighters, police officers, with nurses, with our doctors, with almost everything we can think, with our own even air pilots. Alson is one of them, who is now the air marshal. But there are more than, I think there were about 9 or more than 9 who had done, the stipulated, international level, what we call international level of Air Force. Because then flying an aircraft, a fighter bomber is not like flying what we call a passenger plane. Because when you are using that thing, you'll be just on your own. If you are hit, you can eject your seat, and then the plane crashes. Even if at least you crash, you'll be the only one. So when you are an Air Force pilot, you are really different from a commercial pilot passenger. So with almost all the departments you can think of, with the mechanized tanks, with the anti-air crew, four barrels, deshakers and whatnot. So really, Smith didn't have any tanks. The first tanks to roll a year are ZPRA tanks. the Smith regime had these armored troop carriers only. So I'm sure when the Boers actually got information international that we received tanks from the Soviet Union, they became worried. Because when we received the tanks, they came through Dar es Salaam. They were monitored through up to Tunduma, but they lost, the track when they got into Zambia. Instead of coming straight, through the Great North Road, we had to take them towards, Zaire. But the Boers went on to bomb, Mkushi River. That they couldn't find out where they were. So they were really worried. But the British really played all this problem we are having of tribalism, difference between ZPRA and ZANU. Some of the problems were created by the British. Or even, ZANU, when it was created, again, it was on tribal lines. But to tell the fact is this, that our differences actually were worsened by Lord Soames. BMAT was around. They were supposed to train the 50th Brigade, if ever they needed a 50th Brigade, to take care of the people who were refusing to be integrated into the force. But they decided to call the Koreans. When it was BMAT, the British military training, it was supposed to be in charge, but they called, the Koreans to come and train the 50th Brigade. For what reason? For what reasons? To divide us more, further. Innocent people died. Where the one brigade, if our government needed, to round up, the so-called dissidents. Well, they were not dissidents actually. Well, they were our fighters, but because they had foreseen that there was danger into the whole setup, they refused. But if at least we had used our own forces, especially our battalion, which at least was in Dupan, there was going to be less casualties. Even the Russians said, if you find that the road will be tough, there will be people refusing to integrate into the forces in Zimbabwe. Make sure use your own force. There will be less casualties, because one, you will negotiate and find a way to make them understand that, gentlemen, let's come home, let's sort our problems on our own. But they decided otherwise. So that's where the situation went wrong. The other serious problem was this, that, the trained guerrillas were revolutionaries. But our leaders were nationalists. That, from the beginning, you would realize that, that was a serious conflict. Even the Smith regime, when they released all the party leadership to Zambia, it was a ploy of derailing the revolution. Because they knew very well that, the nationalists and the revolutionaries will never work together. It will be a struggle. That's why you could see we lost the person who was an architect in forming, the revolutionary forces, Zephaniah Moyo, because of some of the misunderstanding. And JZ, and as well as Akim and the Flores, Chikerema also, taking his own route, coming back into Zimbabwe. That again, it was a serious indication of how nationalists behave. If you try and analyze it that way, you'll actually understand all these problems you are having is because of that. You cannot mix a person who has been radicalized, who has got an ideological concept further than that the land belongs to ours. Land is ours. But a person has been radicalized. He has worked with other revolutionaries in the whole world. E.g., Cuba is a small island, but he stood against America. And America gave up because of the ideological concept. But these leaders didn't have any ideological concept. They wanted their land, full stop. There was no way they could say, no, we will defend whatever we fought for. They said, we will negotiate. Sometimes negotiations end up, in the manner which our revolution ended up. Like you already say that, you already alluded that it baffles people's mind that an army, formidable army like ZPRA could have lost out and became nothing. But there are a lot of things. Well, ZAPU, at the end, there was the issue again of majority and minority. And then it was fine-tuned by the British. So that's where the problem was. And other forces or other comrades or ZAPU, ZANU or ZANU felt most probably were going to do a thing which at least took place in Angola. That if at least they are not careful, they will be overrun by ZPRA. That's why they became so aggressive.
Ezimnandi azipheli, I know Moyo has raised a lot of critical issues and a lot of very interesting stories, and we hope to be bringing more people to collaborate or to say their own point of views. But for today, we'll stop here. You can follow us on YouTube, CITEZW. You can also find us on Facebook and on Twitter. Bakithi kuqakathekile ukuthi lilandele isite. Please like our page and follow our page on YouTube. The more followers we have, the more likes we have, we'll also be able to reach more people. But we can also be able to monetize our content on YouTube so that we can continue doing the work that we do. So ngiyalicela bakithi, follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, and also share the videos so that more people can get this information that we are sharing. My name is Zenzele Ndebele. Till we meet again in other programs, have a good day.